All right. You guys see the presentation?
I do.
Okay, perfect. So this is going to be, I would say, probably a not very long update for Octo. Probably we're briefer than previous presentations. I'll go over some background first of uh, what Octo is, why it exists for the Vista community, and we're going to spend the bulk of the talk talking about what changed since last year. Hmm? Here we go. So I'm sure we don't need to tell many of the people on here about the AutoDB, so we'll just skip that. So Octo is an SQL database engine whose tables are stored in global variables. And as a point of fact, actually, it was first developed against a for VistA, so it was it's a lot of, like, when I look at some of the original design for Octo, it was reflecting many Vista concepts that not necessarily true for other M applications. Octo is only runs on YataDB. It is not a GTM application. And the way we typically recommend deploying it in production is, well, we're going to get to that later. We deploy it on production on our application instance, but I'll talk about that in a little more detail later. So the reasoning why people want to access SQL, access FileMan data via SQL, it has to do with the nature of SQL as a declarative programming language and the fact that it has a lot of clients and tools. So mainly a lot of business analysts know SQL and expect GUIs that they want to use for reporting. So let's talk about Octo architecture. And Octo, you can think of it very simply. I mean, this diagram has a lot of moving pieces, but if you want, let me see if this cursor moves around. So what you could do, what you could really do just when you're testing this, and what a lot of people do to test it, is this is your Vista database at this point, and you have to run a small program to produce the DDL and then ingest it into Octo. And at that point, you'll be able to just run Octo and be able to just run simple SQL queries. Or you could run the Octo server and use that and connect to it with a remote client. And when you're testing, that's, just for ease of use, probably just you're just trying some SQL queries around in Vista. It's easiest just to put Octo on the same Vista instance that you have, like a testing instance. So you could just easily test it. In a production configuration, what we add is this piece down here, the replication. So rather than Octo actually impacting your production workload, and your production globals, what we recommend is to use something called SI replication. It puts it in a separate database on a separate machine, and it's on that machine that you actually talk to Octo.
So what's SI replication, Sam?
A supplementary instance. So YataDB has two types of replication. It has BC, which stands for business continuity. And what that does is that it's basically a carbon copy of your database. And as a carbon copy, you are not allowed to modify it. An SI, which is supplementary instance, not a BC, is the other type, and that lets you modify the data on there. And why you need to modify it for Octo is Octo needs to create globals for its own operation. Does that
So
explain it?
yes, it does very well. And so is SI um, something that has to be actively receiving the journal files to keep it
Yes,
up?
yes, that's correct. Yes. In a very small nutshell kind of way, yes, that's correct. Um, so Octo has been released initially in September 2020. So this is the 2023, so we're 3 years on. And this is the website where everything is there. It is, we, uh, I think in the early stages, we toyed around with having a release schedule similar to YataDB, but what happened was the change, the changes were very extensive every single time we made a new version, and like we wanted it out to users very quickly. So what we've done is we've implemented continuous integration pipelines, and you could drop in a new version at any time. And so it's just basically continuously released, and we track the current version using Git hashes. All right, so let's talk about this is the bulk of this talk. What changed since the last VistA community meeting, basically last year. Actually, I looked over every single commit since the last year, and all of the changes most of them had to do with bug fixes. Sorry, not all. Most of them had to do with bug fixes. And you would not believe how difficult it is to write an SQL engine. It is immensely difficult. I just blush on, 10 years ago, I thought, oh, SQL over FileMan, easy. No, it's not at all. So there's some of the more important things that are relevant to the VistA community. We have implemented views. One of our earliest users told us that views are a scene non-qua to be able to use Octo properly, and they are finally implemented. That same user actually asked for a way to automatically start up Rocto when the system starts up. So we've added information just as documentation for setting up Rocto to start up automatically with your operating system using systemd.
Can you comment what views is?
Sure. In the SQL world, you typically, if you do a select star on a table or a select something from a table, that's not a typical query. A typical query tends to be really complex. And then on top of that, you have to use that same query over again as the source for another query. And what a view is saving the original query definition so that you could just simply refer to the original query without all its complexity as if it's a single table. So I will show you an example later. One good example of a view is like a sliding window view where you want to say, I want to see all the admissions since yesterday. Well, that's not the admissions table because admissions table has a lot of data, and you don't want all the data. Well, you could create a view that's automatically it changes the data every day, but it will be visible to the end user as if it's a single table. Does that explain it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, we have the next thing is \d on a table name now shows more information. That is not that relevant actually because it only applies in the Octo command line interface. Um, we have the ability to use extract with non-key columns as well as SQL functions. Again, it's you would not know what that means until you actually have to use it, so don't worry about it. This one I consider kind of important. When debugging performance problems in Octo, a lot of the time I couldn't figure out whether the front end has a problem or Octo has a problem. And so we added this message in like if you start Octo in verbose mode, so that it tells you when it's done sending the data. And that's a signal to tell you whether when Octo is stuck, whether it's stuck processing or whether it's your front end client that's stuck. All right. This was another big a big set of functionality that we spent time on. We've had people asking us to support more clients, and the two big clients that people were asking us to support were actually Power BI and Jaspersoft. Well, we actually Jaspersoft requires us to implement schemas, which we don't have support for schemas yet, and uh, implementing Power BI will open up a lot more Microsoft products that would work with Octo. So we decided to pour our energy to implement Power BI. And so we now support Power BI. Excel works as well. And the if you use any other products that use the Microsoft, the ODBC driver for Postgres, it will also work as well. We've spent time to implement two additional clients besides the previous other client that was Squirrel that we supported. These are just pure SQL clients, not reporting tools. And this one is the two that we support now, in addition to Squirrel, are SQL Workbench/J and dbeaver. There was a few requests on hard hats, and I kind of regret spending the time on doing it at this point because it just took a lot of time to implement and getting additional hardware and setting it up and all of that. But it's what's done is done. We now have ARM64 Docker images for people who run Mac M processors, and these you can now run. You can basically now run YataDB on your Mac very easily. There was a bunch of write functionality enhancements, which I won't discuss because they are not applicable to VistA. This was a small bug fix to the DDL generator. We had a function file that was supplied by one of our Octo users. It was not actually very thoroughly evaluated, and it used to work on an earlier version of Octo, but it was not integrated in our test pipeline. So it kind of started accumulating some bugs. After another user reported the errors, I went in and found out what the issues are. There was an issue in Octo, which we have since fixed, which was it treated integers and numeric values differently, which is kind of a non sequitur in the M world, because for us, a number is a number is a number is a number. So, that's fixed in Octo, and the function files have now been fixed, and they've also been added to our pipeline so that if if we make any change to Octo, we'll discover them right away if it fails. So that's now fixed. Future plans. So this is kind of a, you see the crossed off items. These are the items that are now done. And the two big things that we plan to work on over the next year are date/time support and foreign key constraints. And both of these are actually very big jobs. I actually think date and time is actually going to be a bigger job than foreign key constraints. I think foreign key constraints is, it's a lot of code, but I don't think it's technically difficult. I think date and time is going to be difficult. But one thing about date time that's going to be very exciting for our VistA customers is we are going to support FileMan datetime natively, which is very exciting. Like, you do not have to change any of your data and it will be interpreted as datetime. This image gets generated every night with the latest version of Octo. So the demo I'm going to be showing you is using this image. So let's go ahead and run a demo. So I'm showing you dbeaver, and dbeaver is kind of in the middle of the easiest client to use is SQL Workbench/J, but this one is not as easy. It's easier than Squirrel. I think Squirrel is the hardest, like, just that the user interface for Squirrel is very cumbersome. But the SQL Workbench/J is pretty good. And this one has a lot more features, and we're happy to support it at this point. So the way you set up a database connection is you select Postgres. Where's Postgres here? I can't find it. Oh, it's the first one. And then you fill in some values here, and you have to go and set up your driver settings. So I will let you figure out from Google searches how to figure out how to set up a driver. So we'll leave that for you. But the focus of this talk is on Octo. So in here you can go to databases, Postgres, and go to I think it's under, nope, where is it? Schemas, public, tables. And I find accession is a table that usually has data in it. So if I double click on it, I get the properties of all the fields, and then I could click on data, and I could actually see the data inside of the table. That's pretty cool, actually. So that's that. And the other big client I want to show you, it's not one of our quote unquote supported clients, but because it's not an external client, but in our web GUI, there's a section for Octo. So let me show it to you. And the web GUI is also installed in that same Docker image that's updated nightly. And we're going to do the same table. So this is the message telling you about what dragging does. So hit OK, we hit select, and it gives you all the fields. So rather than doing all of them, let's just pick a few. Just pick this guy, this guy, this guy. Hit paste, and This one, you do Control Enter, just like all of the most of the other SQL clients, and it works. You get to see the data from Octo here. This interface is really cool and pretty minimal, so it's very, very nice. And you can actually label each query. So you could say accessions, then you could do a new one, and you could say like select name from patient. And there you go. That's also data from VistA. This gives you an idea. We have a list of functions. You get to see all the functions here as well. And there's functions like that are specific to the VistA, so like fmadd, fmdiff, and fmget, and fmnow for file mandates. All right, let's see what else. I think, Nancy, I think we have views here. So create view, v as select name from patient where age less than 70. So this is okay. So this is really cool. Now, Nancy, I want you to see. Let's make it select star. Oh, drop view v. Here we go. Hold on a second. Maybe I just need to execute this separately and then run this. Well, it's not supposed to do that. Oh, it did not reply. Well, all right. We may have a cannot drop view. It doesn't exist. Okay. Oh, it just doesn't delete it. All right. This looks like a tiny bug. It works though. Select select star from V. Maybe I shouldn't have done select star on the patient file, but it's okay. Here we go. So Nancy, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, so this is a sliding window view. Age is actually a calculated field in VistA. It actually keeps changing. We have a patient who is 29, so I can re-execute these and just say less than 30. And look at this. The age is now I created a view, and people's name and the people who show up on the view are all patients whose age is less than 30. I can leave the system alone, come back next year, and you see this first patient. They will, if I rerun that same query, they will automatically drop off.
They will drop. Oh, because they're 29.
Because they would have aged out from the view.
So I bet, systems have a lot of views for what they use every day or something.
Exactly. So that's exactly why views are extremely important, because it's really quite difficult to write very massive VistA queries every single time. But you want to kind of abstract it, and you want to use the sliding window feature with calculated fields, so that the data that you display is relevant, and you don't get all the data being pulled from your system.
Very nice.
Okay, so that's that, and I think, how much time do I have left, Nancy?
It's 11:11. Let me look at the schedule on the other computer. Hold on.
I'm here. I'm looking. 11:30. Oh, okay. Looks like I have 20 more minutes, so I can show you another client. So let's do that. Okay, So the next client I'm going to show you is Power BI. And I wish I started Power BI before because it takes forever to start, but we'll just let it, especially that I'm presenting, which takes up most of my CPU time, but it will be slow. So we'll just work with it. So the reason Power BI is slow is it's actually an entirely .NET program. So, and .NET is a runtime language. So let's do get data. Well, oh, here it is. It's coming up. All right. So before you have to do you get data, what you have to do is you have to go to the ODB. Well, there's something before that too. So first thing, you actually have to download the Postgres driver, which I can just do a quick search. Postgres ODBC driver download. So it's right here, and you go to download, and what we now do in Octo is we only test and support the latest version. In our case, actually, we know that we've been using 13 and 15. We know 13 and 15 work properly. But the code does change with every version, so you need to make sure you get you need to get a version that we actually specifically support. So we know that 13 and 15 work. So you need to install that. Then after installing, you need to go to something called ODBC data sources. And then you need to set up an ODBC data source. You don't, I've used the Unicode and ANSI versions of the Postgres driver. They both work. But basically say add and pick, use the 64-bit one, either this or this. And then you'll fill in a bunch of fields. So I'll show you like the one that I filled out already. This is what it looks like. The important parts are you can Octo supports TLS. You could actually enable that and say even require, but I don't have it set up. We have a server and the port. So these are the important ones: the SSL, server, port, username, and password. And for me, I have this on my server on 1338, username admin, password admin. And you hit test, and that just verifies that the connection is successful. So now we go back to Power BI. Now that you've done both of those steps, you can go to database. Actually, you have to go to other and look for ODBC. Hit connect. And then you choose the entry that you set up in that driver, and you hit OK. And it now gives you a list of all tables. Now, you see how slow this is? I initially thought that it was Octo that was being slow, but I after investigating and after adding that extra message that tells me when Octo finishes, it turns out that it's Power BI that has trouble instantiating like .NET instances for all of these tables. So a quick thing a quick demo that I do is patient allergy. think it was called patient allergy. Maybe it's just allergy. No, hold on.
GMS allergy.
SGMS allergy. Oh yeah. It's not GMS. GMR. Here it is. GMR.
Yes, GMR.
I actually think, George, it's patient allergies. It's not, that's GMR allergies is what contain the allergy definitions.
Yeah, it's V. It would be
No, it's not. It's not.
not.
Here it is. Here it is. Patient allergies. So the nice thing about Power BI, you click on it and it gives you a preview of the data. So now you say, I want to import this table. And the next one we can get now is patient. And there's a lot of patient tables. Let's see. Here's patient. All right, so the next step typically when you do this is you click on transform data. So I'm going to do it the official way and not skip ahead. So you hit transform data. And what transform data does, this lets you modify the various data that you receive. So a lot of data pipelines, what they do is they extract data, they massage data, and then they change it. One common thing that gets massaged, for example, is if you have dates, for example, and they're not interpreted as dates, you need to say like you could say I'm trying to remember what the thing what it is. There was like here I just don't see it from the GoToMeeting thing. So you change the data type to something else, for example. So here it says make the data type date and time. Now this is not going to work with this date, so I'm not going to bother, but I'm just giving you an idea of what kind of things you could do. You can also say like filter and just remove nulls, for example. So you could do that too. And every single step you do will be recorded over here, and then you hit apply, and then that will filter the data, and your data that you get will be filtered and transformed to the way you want it. Oh, another filter, for example, another thing you can do is, let's say you want to split the names, split a field to various subfields. So I don't exactly remember. Oh, here it is right there, split columns. You could say split column by delimiter. And for example, I could say split it by a comma right there, and etc. And that will create new fields for you. So anyways, we don't really need to do any of this here. So what we're going to do now is hit close and apply.
So in theory, could you use this Microsoft part to transform the fileman data into year, month, and day?
Actually, there's a feature in the data dictionary and in the VistA DDL thing. There's a flag that I added based on a request of a customer to uh, create extra fields for each date and time field that is actually a real date and time. So the answer is yes, actually, and it will be detected automatically by Power BI. All right, so your next step after that, you would go to the model view and you would verify or create the relationships. And in this case, it auto detected that patient and patient allergies are a one-to-many relation. So that's all done and you don't have to do it anymore. The next thing you have to do when using this is you have to go to summarization settings for the fields that you want. So I'm planning to graph reactants by patients, and sometimes I succeed in doing it, sometimes I don't. Hopefully I'll get it to work, but no guarantees. But let's say I want a count of patients, so I'm going to click on the name field, and I want summarization to be a count, so I'd say count. So this time when I drag the name field, it would basically count how many names there are. And then I would go, so this is patient and patient allergies, and where's GMR allergy, I want actually reactant. Let's look at reactant, and I don't want that to be summarized. So that sets it. Okay, good. So now let's go ahead and develop the report. And I just want a simple bar chart. And they said I'm not really very great at this, but I will do my best. So we want the reactants wherever it is, reactants on the x-axis. So let's drop it on the x-axis here. I think, no, it's y-axis. And then the x-axis will be the count of the patient name. So let's find name. You could search for it, name. Here it is. All right, well, I don't think this is doing the exact right thing. I sometimes was able to get it to work, but this is a bar graph theoretically of counting the number of patients per each reactant. And I have to look at it some more on why it's not giving me exactly the number of reactants. But as you could see, this is all talking to Octo, and what you can, there's a lot more that you could do, and there are lots of YouTube videos on how to use Power BI. Once you create a report, and then you could create text boxes with various reactants, and let's say, in any case, you could create very fancy reports, and then you would use this to publish them to on a host, either your hosted instance or a Microsoft website that's tied to your organization, and then you could give people access to run these reports. And yep, that's pretty good. I have 5 more minutes. I think I'll just leave them for questions rather than demo other clients. So let's go back to the presentation. All right, that's it. Let me know if anybody has any questions.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Sam. That's awesome work. I'm just thinking now, Omar may be able to use that because he's running Yoda. That he'd be able to use that to sell the data that the pharmacies that he's working with that want data. Maybe that's a way to kind of generate revenue, is to have those views or updated data for the people that are looking for it. Maybe a free model for getting data and accessing data for patients, something like that. But I see a lot of potential for it anyways, but awesome work.
Oh, thank you. Oops, sorry. Okay, very good. Well, I think we have 5 more minutes. I can show you Excel. Do you want to see Excel?
Yes.
All right. That's
The
probably more something that people
inevitability. Yes.
would wanna use. So Excel, you have to go to data and you go to from other sources from Microsoft Query. And here's the server, hit OK. It brings up all of the tables. So let's say, remember we got the accession table. So we could just click on plus. It brings in all the fields. You hit next. And you could use you could filter the data and say, I want stuff with these values. And then you could sort the data and just hit next. And that's just say, return data to Microsoft Excel or view or edit query in Microsoft Query. So we can actually do that. Uh, I'll show you the more complicated one, just Microsoft Query. So here is that, and you can go to add tables, and it brings more tables. So you could just add more tables there. And if there are two tables with links, you can get the tables with links. So for example, can we remove a table? I can't remember now. Oh, remove table. So now I'm gonna run over to the next slide, but you know what? I should just finish up next speaker. So I'll finish up but basically what I wanted to show you was you could link tables together, so you could do like a join query. But we're just gonna do something simple. Let's just hit close, and let's just do star and close this and hit OK, and you get that table. But what you could do with Microsoft Query is you could bring tables that are linked together, let's say a patient and patient allergy, and then you could do visually a join query, and that will give you the data over here in Excel. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay, thanks.